The galaxy held its breath. The alien queen's rage was growing, her fleets more aggressive, her eyes fixed on one target, the human who had dared to challenge her. Captain Alex Ryden and the crew of the Aurora had spent months testing, observing, and striking at her forces. Every action had inspired resistance, spread courage, and exposed weaknesses in her armor. Now the time had come for the decisive move. Alex gathered his crew in the strategy room. The holographic display showed the Queen's flagship, enormous and threatening, orbiting the planet Zephyra, a critical hub for her operations. "This is it," Alex said. "We strike directly. One bold move, one precise action, and the Queen will see what humans can do. Not with numbers, not with brute force, but with creativity, courage, and teamwork." Mara, scanning the hologram, nodded. "We know her armor. We know her patterns. We know her fleet. We can do this, Alex." Alex turned to the team. "Everyone knows their role. Precision, patience, and adaptability. Nothing more. Stick to the plan, but be ready to improvise. This is what humans do best." The crew tightened their grips on controls, adjusted systems, and ran final checks. Every moment of preparation had led to this point. The Aurora approached Zephyra silently, cloaked in the shadow of nearby asteroids. Alien patrols scanned the area, unaware that a single human ship carried the hope of countless civilizations. The Queen herself watched from her command throne, her gaze sharp and full of fury. She believed humans were clever, yes, but ultimately weak. She would soon learn otherwise. Alex maneuvered the Aurora toward the Queen's flagship, carefully avoiding detection. "We move in 2 streams, he instructed. Drones to create diversions, small craft to infiltrate, and the main ship to strike the junction. Timing is everything." As the drones launched, the Queen's fleet responded instantly, chasing illusions and phantoms. Beams of energy cut through space, missing the humans entirely. Alex guided the ship closer, every movement precise, every second measured. "Almost there," Mara said, her eyes on the display. "The rear energy junction, the same point we observed before. That's our window." Alex's hand hovered over the controls. "Ready on my mark." In a coordinated attack, drones approached the junction, attaching to the armor with silent precision. Tiny charges were armed, designed not to destroy but to disable. Alex held his breath as the countdown began. "Now!" he shouted. The charges detonated, sending an electromagnetic pulse through the junction. The Queen's armor flickered, weakened in a critical spot. The gleaming surface dimmed, revealing vulnerability for the first time. The Queen's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible," she shouted. Her voice echoed through the flagship. "No human can touch me." Alex watched the display calmly. "Armor is strong," he said to his crew, "but humans are stronger." The Aurora slipped inside the fleet's defenses, moving with agility unmatched by the larger, slower alien ships. Using precise maneuvers, Alex guided the ship to strike secondary junctions, temporarily disabling the flagship's shield systems. Alien attacks intensified, but they were misdirected by the clever use of drones and holograms. "Keep going," Alex shouted. "We're almost there." The crew worked in perfect synchrony. Mara handled navigation. Kieran managed the drone systems, and the other engineers monitored the Queen's energy outputs. Every member knew that one misstep could mean destruction, but their training, courage, and trust in each other carried them forward. Finally, the Queen's flagship was cornered. Its armor, once a symbol of invincibility, was fractured, flickering under the human assault. The Queen herself rose, stepping toward the main viewport, her eyes burning with fury. "Alex Ryden," she hissed, "you will pay for this. Surrender now or be destroyed." Alex stood tall at the controls, his voice steady. "Surrender? No, but you will see what humans are capable of. Not because of numbers or weapons, but because we never give up, and because we think where others cannot." The Queen's rage intensified, but the humans remained calm. Using the knowledge gained over months of observation, Alex executed a final maneuver. The Aurora deployed its last set of precise charges at the weakened points in the armor. A pulse of energy coursed through the flagship, and the Queen's defenses faltered completely. For the first time, the Queen was vulnerable. Alex did not strike to destroy her. He wanted to show a lesson. He disabled her control systems, rendering her flagship unable to coordinate her fleet. Confusion spread among the alien forces as their supreme commander struggled to regain control. The humans had not relied on raw strength. They had relied on strategy, creativity, and teamwork. They had turned fear into courage and arrogance into opportunity. The Queen, realizing she could no longer fight directly, retreated. Her fleet withdrew in disarray, leaving occupied planets leaderless and confused. The humans had won not by destroying, but by outthinking, outmaneuvering, and inspiring resistance across the galaxy. Back on the Aurora, the crew erupted in quiet celebration. Tears, laughter, and hugs filled the command room. Months of planning, reconnaissance, and daring missions had culminated in victory. Humanity had proven that even a single small ship, guided by courage and intelligence, could challenge the mightiest being in the galaxy. Alex addressed the crew. "This is more than a victory," he said. "It is proof that humans are special. We adapt, we inspire, we fight with our minds and our hearts. This victory belongs to everyone who refused to accept fear, everyone who acted when it mattered most." Word of the humans' triumph spread quickly. Colonies rejoiced as the Queen's forces withdrew. Small acts of resistance turned into organized movements, reclaiming territory once thought lost. Civilians who had been oppressed saw hope, knowing that one human could change the course of the war. Across the galaxy, the story of Captain Alex Ryden and the crew of the Aurora became legend. Not because they destroyed the Queen, but because they dared to challenge the impossible, and succeeded. Their ingenuity, courage, and determination became a symbol of humanity's special edge. Even the Queen herself, humbled by the experience, could not deny the lesson. Strength and armor alone could not triumph over intelligence, adaptability, and spirit. Humans were different. Humans were extraordinary. Months later, as the Aurora drifted among the stars, Alex looked out at the galaxy. The stars, once distant and untouchable, now seemed like allies. Humanity had faced the greatest threat it had ever known, and survived. Mara approached him, smiling. "The galaxy will never forget this, Alex. You showed them all what humans are capable of." Alex nodded. "No, we showed ourselves. Strength isn't in weapons or armor. It's in courage, ingenuity, and heart. That is what makes humans unstoppable." The crew of the Aurora continued their journey, visiting liberated worlds, aiding colonies, and spreading hope. The Queen's armor had been broken, but more importantly, humanity's spirit had been proven. Across the galaxy, the story of a single human daring to challenge the most powerful alien in existence became a legend, inspiring generations to come. And in the vastness of space, one truth remained clear. Humans may be small, but their courage, intelligence, and spirit can change the universe itself. The alien Queen raged over her armor. Yes, but one human had claimed responsibility, and in doing so, humanity had claimed its place among the stars. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the wide observation window of the mothership Aurelia. Ships glided silently in the dark void, reflecting pale light from distant suns. At the heart of this vast alien vessel, in a hall lined with strange metals that shimmered like liquid silver, sat the alien Queen, Veljara, the ruler of countless star systems. Her presence alone commanded respect, for she was known across galaxies as wise, powerful, and precise. Her warplate, a suit of technology so advanced that it could adapt to any environment and amplify her abilities, rested in a pedestal nearby. Veljara rose slowly from her throne. Her long, shimmering appendages brushed against the floor, leaving faint traces of glowing energy. She circled the warplate and stopped, her eyes narrowing. "Who touched my warplate?" she demanded, her voice calm yet sharp, vibrating in the hall with authority. A crowd of alien engineers and advisors froze. None dared answer immediately. The warplate had never been disturbed without her consent. Among the gathered aliens, whispers spread quickly. Any tampering could be seen as an insult to the Queen herself. Finally, one of the engineers, a tall being with crystalline skin, stammered, "Your Majesty, we are investigating, but no system logs indicate any unauthorized access." Veljara's gaze swept across the room. "Then who did it? Find the intruder immediately." The room went silent, the hum of distant machinery filling the tension. The Queen's advisors looked at each other uneasily. They had technology far beyond what humans could imagine, yet somehow someone had interfered with the warplate. Meanwhile, far above the mothership in the neutral science vessel Aurora Dawn, a young human engineer named Elior Kane adjusted his visor. He leaned over a console, observing readings streaming in from the Aurelia. His ship had been called here because the Queen's advisors had requested help from a human specialist known for solving impossible engineering problems. Lyra was small in stature, with a calm confidence that seemed out of place among the giant alien beings. Yet he had a sharp mind, and his talent for understanding complex systems had earned him respect in interstellar engineering circles. He adjusted the interface and smiled slightly. "Looks like someone left a little puzzle for me," he muttered. A communication ping broke his focus. The holographic image of an alien official appeared. "Engineer Kane," the official said. His voice was hesitant. "The Queen requests your immediate presence aboard the Aurelia. There is an issue with her warplate. She requires your expertise," Lyra straightened. "I'm on my way. Let's hope it's a fun problem and not a disaster." Inside the mothership, Veljara walked in silence as the advisors surrounded the pedestal. The warplate stood tall, a combination of sleek alloys and glowing energy conduits. Its surface shimmered as if aware of its surroundings. The Queen touched it lightly with her clawed hand, and a faint hum responded. "This should not be altered without my permission," Veljara said, her voice carrying both irritation and curiosity. An engineer approached cautiously. "Your Majesty, our scans show slight modifications in the energy distribution matrix. It appears different from our standard configuration." Veljara's eyes glimmered. "Explain," the engineer stammered. "We do not understand. The changes are clever but not of our making. It is as if the modifications were designed by another species." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "Another species? You mean the human?" The room fell into silence. Humans were not typically invited aboard the Aurelia, except in rare cases where their unique skills were required. They were clever, resourceful, and unpredictable, a combination that could either solve problems or create them. At that moment, the doors to the hall slid open with a soft hiss. Lyra Kane stepped through, carrying only a small toolkit and his calm demeanor. His eyes scanned the warplate immediately, noting the intricate patterns and energy flows. "Greetings, Your Majesty," he said politely. "I hear there's a problem with the warplate." Veljara's multiple eyes regarded him carefully. "Are you the one humans call Engineer Kane?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty. I'm here to help." The Queen studied him for a long moment. She had seen many beings, but humans intrigued her. Their minds were different, creative, flexible, often unpredictable. "You will examine my warplate," she said finally. "And you will tell me who touched it, or you will leave this chamber in pieces." Lyra nodded calmly. "Understood, may I?" He gestured to the warplate. Veljara stepped aside. Lyra approached, kneeling slightly to observe the energy conduits. He ran his fingers over the controls, careful not to trigger anything. His eyes darted between patterns, noting subtle modifications, tiny changes in power flow, clever rerouting, and unusual safety overrides. "Interesting," he muttered. "These aren't random. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. And they weren't malicious," an advisor whispered nervously to Veljara. "He seems confident, almost too confident." Lyra continued to study the warplate. He ran diagnostic sequences and observed the reactions. "Ah," he said, "I see now. These modifications were likely left during a past human engineering collaboration. They were designed as safeguards, nothing more." Veljara's gaze hardened. "Explain," Lyra smiled gently. "Humans sometimes approach technology differently. We anticipate problems and create small backups or safety measures. Sometimes we don't announce them. It's not tampering in the harmful sense, it's preparation." The Queen tilted her head, considering this. "You mean it is not dangerous?" "Not at all," Lyra replied. "In fact, it improves the efficiency slightly, without compromising any core systems." The advisors exchanged glances, some skeptical, others relieved. Veljara remained silent for a moment, then spoke slowly. "You say this is human ingenuity, and not an insult?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Humans value responsibility as much as innovation. We create to solve problems, not to defy authority," Lyra explained. Veljara studied him closely, noticing the calm in his eyes, the precision of his movements, and the clear respect for the technology before him. She had never seen a human engineer in action, only heard stories of their cleverness. "Very well," she said finally. "You will demonstrate these safeguards. Show us that your explanation is true." Lyra nodded and stepped closer to the warplate. He began to run a controlled simulation, carefully activating the modifications one by one. Energy patterns shifted and flowed smoothly, as if the warplate itself recognized his intent. Small lights blinked across its surface, responding to his adjustments. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. It moves differently than expected. Yes, Elior said, but it is stable. The system is stronger, more adaptable, without risk. Your warplate remains fully under your command. A wave of murmurs ran through the advisors. Some were astonished, others curious. Veljara's expression softened, though she would never admit it aloud. You humans, she said slowly, may be more clever than I expected. Elior smiled politely. We like to think of it as careful observation and problem-solving, Your Majesty. The Queen stepped closer to the warplate herself, reaching out to touch it. The hum of energy shifted subtly, as if the warplate acknowledged both her authority and Elior's adjustments. Perhaps, Veljara said quietly, humans are not merely clever, they may be valuable. Elior bowed slightly. We are honored to assist, Your Majesty. The tension in the room eased. For the first time in hours, the hall felt lighter, less rigid. Even the advisors exchanged small smiles behind their queen's back. A human, thought unpredictable and sometimes frustrating, had proven not only harmless but insightful. Veljara straightened. Very well. You will remain on the ship for now, human. I want to see all that your species can teach us about ingenuity and problem-solving. Elior's heart raced slightly, not from fear, but excitement. Humans had never been given such an opportunity to work so closely with an alien civilization of this scale. He glanced at the warplate again, noting the intricate design, the subtle human safeguards, and the potential it held. This is going to be an interesting collaboration, he said quietly to himself. And somewhere deep in the mothership, the warplate's lights shimmered, as if acknowledging the human who had first understood it in a way even the Queen had not. The stars outside continued to shine, and Elior Kane, a small human among giants, prepared for a challenge that could change how humans were seen across the galaxy. The hall of the mothership Aurelia remained quiet after Elior Kane's initial inspection of the warplate. Alien engineers moved cautiously around their queen, still unsure of how to approach the problem. They had relied for centuries on rigid procedures and strict hierarchies to maintain their technology, but Elior's presence had introduced a new way of thinking, a method both unpredictable and efficient. Elior adjusted the straps on his toolkit and stepped back from the pedestal. He began scanning the warplate's energy conduits with a small handheld device, one of the few human tools allowed on the ship. The machine emitted soft pulses of light and sound as it measured flows of energy, mapping patterns invisible to alien sensors. These readings are fascinating, Elior murmured, more to himself than anyone else. The aliens, curious but cautious, leaned closer. What is fascinating? One engineer asked. His crystalline skin reflected the soft blue glow of the warplate. Elior smiled faintly. Your energy systems are perfectly balanced, but the modifications, small human adjustments, interact in ways that make the system more adaptable. It's subtle, almost artistic. The Queen Veljara tilted her head, observing silently. Artistic? She asked, her voice carrying a note of curiosity that was rare for her. Yes, Elior replied. Humans sometimes leave small improvements, safeguards that may not appear necessary at first. But in unpredictable situations, they prevent problems and can even enhance performance. An advisor whispered to another. Does he imply that humans are better engineers than we are? The other shook his head. Not better. Different. Perhaps clever in ways we cannot always predict. Elior moved closer to the warplate, kneeling and examining the energy distribution matrix. He noticed small conduits running along the suit, almost invisible to standard alien sensors. These conduits, they were left intentionally, he said. Someone designed them to redirect energy if a critical system failed. It's a safety measure, not a threat. Veljara's multiple eyes narrowed. And you claim this was done by your species? Yes, Your Majesty, Elior said. I believe a human engineer installed these changes during a previous collaboration. They were never meant to be hidden. Humans often anticipate potential problems in advance and we leave solutions ready. Sometimes we don't announce them because we trust the technology to reveal itself only when needed. The Queen considered this, silent for several moments. She had encountered humans before, mostly as distant allies or messengers. They were clever, yes, but she had never allowed one to examine her personal warplate. Now one stood before her, calmly explaining intricate systems that her own engineers had struggled to understand. "Show me," she demanded finally. "Demonstrate these safeguards." "I want proof that your words are true," Elior nodded. "Of course." He activated a diagnostic interface on the warplate. Lights blinked and conduits hummed as the human carefully tested each subsystem. The alien engineers watched in awe as energy flowed smoothly through the suit, responding to Elior's adjustments. Where the original design would have paused or faltered under strain, the human modifications allowed the warplate to adapt instantly. "It reacts differently than our calculations predicted," one engineer said softly. "Indeed," Elior said. "It's not a failure, it's adaptation. Humans create systems that anticipate unknown variables. We plan for surprises, not just rules." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. "Explain," Elior smiled. "Imagine a path blocked by obstacles. An alien engineer might create a strict route around the obstacles, following rules precisely. A human engineer might add alternative paths or shortcuts so if one route fails, the system continues to function. The result is resilience." Veljara moved closer, her attention fixed on the warplate. "Resilience? And efficiency?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Elior replied. "It is possible to improve performance while keeping the core system intact. That is the essence of human engineering." The advisors murmured among themselves, clearly impressed. Some glanced at each other, acknowledging silently that humans approached technology in ways that defied rigid logic, yet worked remarkably well. Elior continued his examination. He ran simulations of various combat and environmental scenarios. The warplate responded seamlessly, redirecting energy, adjusting strength and recalibrating sensors in ways the Queen had never imagined. "This is remarkable," Veljara said softly. "Your species. You are clever indeed." Elior bowed slightly. "We are honored, Your Majesty. But cleverness alone is not enough. It is combined with observation, patience, and responsibility that creates truly effective solutions." The Queen studied him for a long moment, as if trying to understand how a human could think so differently from her own species. "And you are confident these changes are safe?" "Yes," Elior said. "They improve the system and prevent potential failures. The warplate is fully under your control at all times." The Queen's gaze softened, a rare expression for a ruler often seen as unapproachable. "Perhaps humans deserve more respect than I realized." Elior smiled politely. "We appreciate the opportunity to assist, Your Majesty." Veljara nodded slowly. "Very well. You will remain aboard the Aurelia for further investigation. I want to understand fully what your species can teach us about adaptation, problem-solving, and innovation." Elior's mind raced with possibilities. Humans had always been underestimated by alien civilizations, but here, in the heart of the Queen's domain, he had the chance to demonstrate their ingenuity. He glanced at the warplate once more, noting the elegant energy flows and the clever safeguards. It was a puzzle, and he loved puzzles. Over the next few hours, Elior worked with the alien engineers, carefully explaining each human modification. He avoided technical jargon, using simple analogies and demonstrations. He showed how a small adjustment in energy routing could prevent overheating, how slight sensor recalibration could improve awareness, and how modular systems could be quickly adapted to unexpected scenarios. The engineers watched, fascinated and slightly frustrated. Their methods were precise but rigid, while Elior's were intuitive and flexible. Some of them struggled to grasp his ideas at first, but gradually, they began to see the value. "You humans think differently," one engineer admitted quietly to Elior. "We follow rules. You improvise," Elior nodded. "Rules are important, but sometimes you need room to adjust. Flexibility allows a system to survive challenges that strict rules cannot anticipate." The Queen observed silently, occasionally stepping forward to touch the warplate. Each time she did, the suit responded flawlessly, almost as if acknowledging Elior's careful adjustments. She felt a sense of confidence she had not experienced before with any engineer, alien or otherwise. Finally, after hours of testing and explanation, Elior stepped back. "The warplate is stable. The modifications are safe, efficient, and adaptable. They were not meant as tampering. They are enhancements." Veljara's voice carried a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "Your species. You are not merely clever, you are creative, cautious, and persistent. Perhaps humans are Valuable allies, Elior bowed slightly. We hope to be of service, Your Majesty. The Queen regarded him silently for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. You will remain on the ship. I want to see how humans handle more complex challenges. I am curious if your ingenuity extends beyond a single suit of armor. Elior's heart lifted. This was more than he had expected. Humans had always been underestimated, yet here, they were being given the chance to prove themselves in the heart of one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. As he packed away his tools, he glanced once more at the warplate. It shimmered in the soft light, almost alive, almost aware. Elior smiled faintly. A human mind had first understood it, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed. The Queen's advisors whispered among themselves, acknowledging silently that humans were not just clever. They were a force of innovation, capable of thinking in ways no rigid system could predict. Veljara finally spoke again, her voice carrying authority and approval. Prepare yourself, human. Your species will face challenges that test ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. If you succeed, you will earn not only my respect but the respect of all who serve under me. Elior nodded, calm and confident. I will do my best, Your Majesty, and I promise humans will not disappoint. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent yet beautiful. Inside, a single human engineer had begun to change the perception of an entire civilization, simply by demonstrating what careful observation, creativity, and courage could achieve. It was only the beginning. The great hall of the Aurelia dimmed as lights shifted to a deeper shade of blue. The Queen's voice filled the chamber, calm yet firm. Human, Veljara said, her many eyes fixed on Elior Kane. You have explained the changes. You have shown their function. But words and small demonstrations are not enough. I need proof. Elior bowed his head slightly. What kind of proof do you require, Your Majesty? The Queen raised one slender arm, pointing toward the warplate. You will test it. Not in words, not in controlled numbers. You will wear it and you will face a trial that shows whether these human modifications are worthy of my trust. A ripple of surprise moved through the gathered advisors. Some gasped, their crystalline forms flickering in the dim light. One advisor dared to speak. Your Majesty, the warplate has never been worn by an outsider. It is sacred. It is yours alone. Veljara's gaze swept over the advisor. I am aware, but this human claims his people's changes made it stronger. Let him prove it. If he fails, he will be removed. If he succeeds, we will know humans truly bring value. Elior stood silently for a moment, the weight of her words settling in his mind. To wear the warplate was not just a test, it was an honor, one that no human had ever received. He felt both nervous and excited. I accept, Your Majesty, he said at last. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. The Queen gave a small nod. Very well. Prepare the simulation chamber. Moments later, Elior stood in a massive dome-shaped room deep within the Aurelia. The chamber was filled with strange structures, glowing terrain, and shifting gravity fields. It was a training ground where the Queen herself tested her warplate's limits. Alien engineers carefully lifted the warplate from its pedestal. It shimmered as if alive, humming with quiet energy. They brought it forward and gestured to Elior. Step forward, human, one said, his voice uncertain. The warplate will adapt to you, if it accepts you. Elior nodded and placed his hands against the inner surface of the armor. It felt warm, like it held a pulse of its own. Slowly, the warplate unfolded and wrapped around his body. The suit adjusted to his size, sealing around him with a hiss of energy. Lights blinked across the surface as if the warplate were scanning him. Elior took a cautious step. The armor moved with him perfectly, lighter than he expected. It was as if it anticipated his intentions, guiding his movements without resistance. It fits, Elior said softly, almost in awe. From behind the observation glass, Veljara watched closely. Her many eyes reflected the glow of the chamber. She had never imagined a human could wear her warplate, yet here he stood, moving with unexpected ease. The test begins, she declared. At her command, the chamber shifted. Gravity inverted for a moment, then stabilized at half strength. The floor reshaped itself into jagged rocks and steep cliffs. Strange robotic drones emerged from hidden ports glowing with energy weapons. Your trial, Veljara said, her voice echoing through the chamber, is survival. Show us how your modifications adapt. Show us if your ingenuity has value. Elior took a deep breath. The drones rushed forward. The first drone fired a pulse of energy. Instinctively, Elior raised his arm. To his surprise, the warplate's shield deployed automatically, deflecting the blast with ease. "That wasn't me," Elior muttered inside the suit. "That was you, wasn't it?" The warplate hummed in response, as if agreeing. Elior grinned. "All right then. Let's do this together." He leapt across a jagged gap, and the warplate boosted his jump with a sudden burst of energy. He landed easily, far lighter than he expected in the reduced gravity. A second drone attacked from above, but the suit adjusted instantly, redirecting power to his upper sensors. Elior twisted and used the suit's gauntlet to strike, sending the drone crashing into the rocks. The observers murmured in shock. The warplate had never reacted so fluidly before, not even with the Queen. "Look," one engineer whispered. "The safeguards, they're guiding him. They predict what he needs before he acts." Veljara remained silent, but her eyes widened ever so slightly. More drones swarmed from hidden doors. Elior ducked, dodged, and moved quickly, the warplate adapting at every step. When the ground tilted suddenly, shifting the terrain, the suit redistributed its balance, keeping him steady. "Okay, let's try something new," Elior said under his breath. He activated one of the rerouted energy flows he had discovered earlier. The warplate's power surged, and a secondary shield expanded outward, knocking back multiple drones at once. The crowd gasped. "Impossible," one alien exclaimed. "The warplate was never designed for that function."
"No," Elior replied, his voice steady. "It wasn't. But humans like to prepare for surprises."
"This is one of them." He continued to fight, his movements becoming smoother, more confident. Each drone that attacked was countered with precision. The warplate seemed almost alive, and together, human and suit moved as one. Finally, after what felt like hours, the last drone fell silent, smoking on the rocky ground. Elior stood tall, breathing heavily inside the suit, but unhurt. The chamber stilled. The terrain flattened back into a smooth surface. The lights dimmed, leaving only the hum of the warplate. Elior raised his head toward the observation glass. "Trial complete, Your Majesty." For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Then Veljara rose from her seat behind the glass. Her many eyes reflected both surprise and respect. "You controlled it," she said, her voice low. "No, it controlled with you. The warplate has never responded like this before, not even with me." Elior stepped out of the chamber as the warplate detached itself and returned to its pedestal. He bowed slightly. "It wasn't just me, Your Majesty. It was the safeguards. They helped the warplate adapt to my needs before I even thought of them. That's the human touch. Anticipation, flexibility, and cooperation." The advisors erupted in murmurs. Some were skeptical, others clearly impressed. Veljara silenced them with a single raised hand. "You have shown me something I did not expect, human. Your species sees possibility where others see limits. You bend rules, but you do not break them. You innovate, but with care." Elior smiled faintly. "That's how we survive, Your Majesty, and sometimes how we thrive." The Queen studied him, silent for several moments. Finally, she spoke with a voice that carried across the chamber. "From this day, I will no longer doubt the value of humans. Your ingenuity is not chaos, it is strength. You have earned my attention, and perhaps my respect." The advisors lowered their heads in agreement, though some did so reluctantly. Elior bowed again. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "I am honored." Veljara's gaze lingered on him. "Your test is not over, human. This was only the beginning. You have proven your modifications work. But now, I will test whether your spirit, your mind, and your heart are as resilient as your engineering. Prepare yourself." Elior's pulse quickened, but he nodded calmly. "I will be ready." As he left the chamber, the warplate shimmered faintly behind him, as if it too acknowledged his success. And in the silent vastness of space beyond the ship, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, for humanity had taken one more step toward recognition among the galaxy's greatest civilizations. It was not just a test of technology, it was a test of humanity itself. And Elior Kane had passed the first trial. The air in the observation hall was tense yet quiet, the soft hum of the mothership's engines filling the space. Veljara, the alien queen, stood before her warplate. Her eyes focused on Elior Kane. The human engineer had proven himself during the trial, mastering the warplate with a combination of intuition and careful planning. Yet the Queen's curiosity was far from satisfied. She wanted to know more about humans. about their ingenuity, and about why they thought differently from her own species. "Human," she said, her voice steady, "you have proven your skill. You have shown that the warplate can be improved through your methods. But I still do not understand one thing. Why were these modifications made in secret? Why would your species leave changes without explanation?" Elior paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. He knew the Queen's species valued honesty and transparency, and misunderstanding could cause tension. Yet he also wanted to explain the human way of thinking clearly. "Your Majesty," he said finally, "humans sometimes leave modifications like these because we anticipate problems that others might not see. We do not hide them out of malice or deceit. We leave them as safeguards, preparations for situations that cannot always be predicted. Sometimes it is better for a system to reveal its full potential only when it is needed." Veljara's many eyes narrowed. "And you call this foresight? You anticipate what might happen, and you intervene without permission?" "Not without respect," Elior replied. "We design with responsibility. We know our work can affect others, so we make sure that any changes enhance safety and function. The modifications you discovered were meant to protect the warplate and its user. They were created in a way that would never harm anyone." The Queen remained silent for a moment, observing Elior closely. Her advisors whispered among themselves, some curious, others skeptical. A human's explanation of such careful planning was unusual for them. Most species approach technology through rigid procedures and logic. Humans approached it differently, blending creativity with caution. "Show me," Veljara said at last. "Demonstrate the intent behind these changes. I want to see not only the function but the reason." Elior nodded. He activated the warplate systems once more, this time in a controlled demonstration. Energy flows shifted gracefully through the armor. He paused, then carefully rerouted power from one subsystem to another, illustrating how the suit could prevent overheating during extended combat or environmental stress. "These conduits," he explained, "redirect energy if a primary system fails. This prevents damage, ensures performance, and protects the user. It was designed to anticipate emergencies, not to bypass rules." The Queen leaned closer. "And this enhances the warplate's ability?" "Yes," Elior said. "It makes the warplate more adaptable. Humans often design for flexibility because the universe is unpredictable. We trust systems to respond to surprises, and we design safeguards for situations that cannot always be controlled." One of the alien engineers spoke hesitantly. "But these changes, they were not documented in our records. How did you understand them so quickly?" Elior smiled faintly. "Humans have a habit of thinking creatively. We look at a system not only for what it is, but for what it could be. We ask what if, and what else, and then we carefully test our ideas. Observation, imagination, and responsibility, those are the tools we use." The Queen's eyes glimmered as she watched Elior work. She realized something profound. Humans were not limited by tradition or fear of error. Their strength lay in their curiosity and adaptability. Even the most rigid system could benefit from their insight. "Perhaps," Veljara said slowly, "my understanding of humans has been incomplete. You are not reckless. You do not seek to dominate or destroy. You seek solutions." "Yes, Your Majesty," Elior said. "Solutions, safety, and efficiency. We value life and progress, and we try to design systems that reflect those principles." A hush fell over the hall. The advisors looked at one another, realizing that the human before them had not only mastered the warplate, but had also revealed a philosophy behind his actions, one that was both practical and admirable. Veljara spoke again, her tone reflective. "Your modifications were clever. Your approach is different. Humans anticipate what others cannot see, and you act responsibly." "That is impressive." Elior bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It is our way of thinking, careful, creative, and cautious. We learn from mistakes and we use our ingenuity to prevent them. That is why the warplate's modifications exist." The Queen paused, then gestured toward the warplate. "I wish to understand this fully. Show me how these safeguards function under real conditions." Elior nodded. He initiated a simulation within the chamber. The warplate adjusted instantly, rerouting energy and stabilizing itself in a series of complex scenarios. He demonstrated how the armor could maintain optimal performance even when systems were stressed beyond normal limits. Veljara watched, impressed. "It adapts. It anticipates. It protects without instruction. Remarkable. Yes, Your Majesty, Ilyar said. Humans build systems that work with unpredictability, not just order. We leave room for innovation, for flexibility, for survival. One of the alien advisors, still uncertain, spoke up. But if humans act without permission, is this not dangerous? Ilyar shook his head. Not if responsibility guides action. Humans think ahead. We create safeguards and backups to ensure that our actions benefit, not harm. This is what makes our modifications safe and valuable. Veljara took a deep breath. For centuries, her people had relied on rules and rigid procedures. Yet this human had shown her that rules were not always the only path to safety and efficiency. There was power and imagination, combined with responsibility, a lesson her species had rarely embraced. You have shown me something rare. Human, Veljara said, her voice carrying both admiration and authority. Your species does not simply follow. You anticipate, you adapt, you innovate, and you do so responsibly. That is worthy of respect, Ilyar nodded. We are honored, Your Majesty. Humans have always relied on curiosity and careful observation. It is how we solve problems and grow. The Queen studied him, thoughtful. Perhaps it is time to consider humans not only as allies, but as equals in ingenuity. You have proven your approach valuable, and you have earned my attention. Ilyar smiled politely. We hope to contribute in any way that benefits your civilization, Your Majesty. Veljara's gaze lingered on him. Tell me, human, why did your species leave these changes without explanation? Surely you could have informed us sooner. Ilyar paused. Because we trust the technology to reveal itself when needed. Humans understand that not every problem can be anticipated, but systems can be designed to adapt. We act when necessary, not arbitrarily. It is a philosophy of observation and timing. The Queen's eyes widened slightly. She realized that humans thought differently, yet their philosophy was sound, ethical, and clever. They did not act recklessly, and they did not seek control. They sought understanding, preparation, and improvement. I see, Veljara said quietly. Your species is disciplined in creativity. You combine responsibility with ingenuity. That is rare. Yes, Your Majesty, Ilyar said. It is our way of thinking. We respect life systems and the unknown. That is why humans survive, and why we thrive when faced with challenges. For the first time, the Queen smiled faintly. It was a rare expression, warm and approving. Very well, human. You have not only explained the Warplate, you have revealed the essence of your species. Humans are clever, adaptable, and responsible. I will consider this revelation carefully. Your modification and your philosophy are worthy of respect, Ilyar bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. We hope to share more of our knowledge and creativity if you allow it. Veljara's gaze lingered on him, thoughtful and approving. You have earned my attention, human. Your species may yet become more than observers in the galaxy. Perhaps you will guide others with your ingenuity, your responsibility, and your creativity. Ilyar smiled faintly, feeling the weight of her words. Humans had always been underestimated in interstellar politics and technology. Yet here, in the heart of one of the most advanced civilizations, they had earned recognition. It was not by force, not by dominance, but by ingenuity, foresight, and care. Outside the observation hall, the stars continued to shine, distant and silent. But inside, humanity's reputation had begun to change. The Queen, Veljara, saw that humans were not just capable of surviving among the stars. They were capable of excelling, of solving problems that others could not, and of inspiring respect. And for Ilyar Kane, standing humbly yet confidently before the alien Queen, this revelation was only the beginning. The human modifications were safe, clever, and responsible, but now, the understanding of humanity itself had begun to take root in the minds of aliens who had once doubted. It was more than technology. It was a lesson in creativity, foresight, and the human spirit. The future of cooperation, discovery, and mutual respect across the stars had begun.